Chances are you have a pair of Nike sneakers sitting in your closet right now. Nike's iconic swoosh logo and "Just Do It" slogan are pretty much universally known, no matter what language you speak. Nike is valued at more than $130 billion as of June 2019, making it one of the most valuable brands on the planet. Nike has been at the top of the sportswear industry for decades, and practically untouchable thanks to a couple key business strategies: controversial advertising, the Air Jordan, and its lucrative exclusive contracts with some of the biggest sports leagues in the country. But trouble may be brewing for Nike. Its sales growth is slowing down in its home turf in North America, and sneakers, the crowning jewel of its portfolio, aren't growing in terms of sales as fast as they used to. Meanwhile, Nike has faced heated criticism over its past treatment of female employees. That's something the company will certainly have to work on if it wants to make women's apparel and sneakers a bigger part of its business. The question now is, will Nike be able to rebuild momentum in the US at the same time it builds out its international operations? Or will Adidas, Under Armour, and other rivals take over? First, let's take a step back and see how Nike got here. Nike wasn't originally called Nike. It was actually first known as Blue Ribbon Sports, and it was founded by Bill Bowerman, a track and field coach at the University of Oregon, and his former student, Phil Knight, in 1964. Knight took a trip to Japan in his early 20s to find a running shoe manufacturer. He was fascinated with how the Japanese were disrupting the camera industry. The first shoes he sold, with the help of the Japanese, were called Tigers, but they didn't yet bear the iconic Nike swoosh. In 1971, Knight and Bowerman decided to split from the Japanese and take their business solo, back in the States. That same year, a graphic design student at Portland State University came up with a new logo for them, and the Nike swoosh was born. And looking for a new name for the company, they went with Nike, referring to Nike herself, the Greek goddess of victory. Nike later went public in December of 1980, and that's when the company really hit its stride. That was the first year it finally overtook rival Adidas in terms of market share in the US. And it was rolling out new products beyond the track shoes it started with. In 1982, Nike launched a basketball shoe known as the Air Force One. That shoe featured its now famous Air technology that was said to give the people who wore them a little extra bounce in their step. In 1986, Nike surpassed $1 billion in revenue for the first time. It was still moving into other sports categories like golf and plotting its physical retail expansion. But with aerobics surging in popularity, Reebok, famous for its chunky exercise sneakers, overtook Nike's top spot in the US market in 1987. Adidas went on to buy Reebok in 2005, but the NPD Group estimates that for 2 years, Reebok, as a standalone company, was ahead of Nike. Nike regained its dominance in the industry in 1989. One big help came in 1988, when Nike premiered the first ever advertisement for its now famous "Just Do It" slogan. That ended up being a hit. 2 years later, the company moved its headquarters into a campus of 8 buildings in Beaverton, Oregon, where it's still based today. It also opened the first Nike bricks-and-mortar store, called Niketown, in downtown Portland in 1990. Nike went on an acquisition spree, starting in the late 80s. Its first deal was to acquire upscale footwear chain Cole Haan, followed by Hurley and Converse. It also more recently acquired 2 analytics companies, Zodiac and Invertex, to help it target shoppers better online. Today, Nike has more than 1,000 stores across the globe. Through the 80s and 90s, Nike got into the rhythm of dropping new and exclusive sneakers, many under the Jordan brand. That birthed the sneakerhead culture many crazed shoe fans know and love today. In 2003, its international sales eclipsed its US sales, showing Nike was developing into a truly global, renowned business. It's gone on to open futuristic flagship stores in hubs like Tokyo and Shanghai. In 2018, Nike brought in more than $35 billion in revenues globally. It's on track to reach revenues of $50 billion in the early 2020s. But Nike has its fair share of challenges ahead. It was 1985 when Michael Jordan's first signature sneaker for Nike debuted. At the time, Jordan's career was just getting started. Nike was having a hard time breaking into the basketball market, so it decided to make a bigger, bolder bet by signing a deal with the rookie. He was a gamble, but it obviously proved to pay off. The first Air Jordans were so different from the standard sneaker that the NBA actually banned them from being worn on the court. But in this setback, Nike saw a marketing opportunity. Nike aired a TV commercial in 1985 that told shoppers to go out and buy the black and red Air Jordan 1 because, fortunately, the NBA can't keep you from wearing them. The Air Jordan 1s cost $65 a pair when they hit shelves in March of 1985. Nike sold $70 million worth of the shoes by May. And by the end of the year, the Air Jordan franchise altogether brought in more than $100 million in sales, a phenomenal feat for such a young, niche brand. All the while, hip-hop culture was on the rise in the US, and Nike saw an even bigger opportunity to tap into that. It sold Jordans as a shoe not just for athletes, but for rappers and artists. Many sneaker enthusiasts today say this is when the so-called sneakerhead movement in the US really started. Other popular players in the space were Reebok and New Balance, and of course still Adidas. Nike made sure its shoes were hard to come by capping supply. That meant customers had to line up to get their hands on them. There was even a wild string of murders in the early 90s over Jordans. Sports Illustrated's famous 1990 cover story was titled, "Your Sneakers or Your Life." If people couldn't get their hands on the coveted Jordan sneakers when they first dropped, shoppers would turn to secondhand sellers. Fast forward to 2019, this is still a booming business with the likes of StockX, GOAT, and Stadium Goods.
The sneaker resale market is actually 34 years old, I guess. I mean, really dating back to 1985 and the first Air Jordans. And there's been like 3 big seminal jumps and changes in the market. 1985 is the first Air Jordans. The first time you have really big difference in supply and demand. And unbeknownst to Nike, they had the greatest basketball player of all time, and they put out a shoe, and way more people wanted it than could get it. And that's at the core of all of this. But at the time, 1985, obviously, that's before the internet, so what you had was this very local underground market around these shoes.
Even after Jordan retired from pro basketball, his brand remained a big deal for Nike. At the end of 2018, the Jordan brand accounted for about 9.5% of Nike's total sales. But Jordan sales were down about 8% in 2018 compared with 2017. Looking for ways to bounce back, Nike has vowed to continue to reinvent the Jordan line for women, which it says is growing at a double-digit rate. It's also trying to sell more Jordan gear to kids. Nike's focus on advertising has also been a huge part of its success strategy. It's been known to strategically release controversial ads, maintain polarizing endorsements, and make bold statements about its brand and the people who wear it. Take Colin Kaepernick. In September 2018, Nike premiered a new ad featuring the former San Francisco 49ers quarterback. The athlete has been a divisive figure in the world of sports since 2016, when he decided not to stand for the national anthem during an NFL preseason football game. He said he was protesting racial injustice.
So don't ask if your dreams are crazy. Ask if they're crazy enough.
At first, there was outrage. Nike shares dropped more than 3% on September 4th, 2018. Hashtag Nike boycott trended on Twitter, and people shared videos showing them burning their Nike sneakers. But ultimately, Nike managed to turn that controversy into cash. Overwhelmingly, the response to the Kaepernick ad ended up being positive for Nike. The video drew record likes on Nike's Instagram account. One group said that in less than a week, the Nike brand's brand exposure on TV, radio, online, and social media amounted to more than $163 million.
On the other side of the table, Nike's gotten $43 million worth of free press in the last 24 hours. Pretty great marketing campaign from that standpoint. They haven't had to spend $1 yet, and they haven't had to place an ad yet.
This wasn't the first controversial commercial from Nike either. The brand has historically taken a stand on issues, and it's almost always resulted in a rise in sales. A Nike ad in 1993 starring Charles Barkley saying,
"I am not a role model,"
stirred a debate about whether or not celebrities should be held to higher standards. A 1995 ad featuring HIV-positive Rick Munoz was blasted by critics because he was openly gay. But in both instances, Nike's sales weren't hurt. The fiscal year of the Barkley ad, total revenues increased by 15.4%. Sales rose by 36% in fiscal year 1996 after the Munoz ad. But Nike isn't just known for its statement-making ad campaigns. The brand has also faced backlash over the years for some of its endorsements. Both tennis star Maria Sharapova and cyclist Lance Armstrong represented Nike, only to become embroiled in scandal over the use of performance-enhancing drugs. Nike stuck by Sharapova but eventually severed ties with Armstrong. Still, those individuals' troubles haven't taken Nike down with them. Nike's sales have weathered the storm each time. In the case of golfer Tiger Woods, Nike maintained its sponsorship of Woods even after he was hit with allegations of marital infidelity and, years later, a DUI charge. But Woods made a huge comeback when he won the 2019 Masters, setting Nike up to make millions. And of course, bragging rights. Nike has actually said that one of its biggest opportunities for 2019 is to scale its women's business. It's planning to go after leggings maker Lululemon's core customer with a broader assortment of athleisure wear, things like yoga pants and revamped sports bras in extended sizes.
I don't think many people appreciate that Nike's women's business is larger than Lulu's business in its entirety. People think about Lulu as being women's, Under Armour as being men's, Nike as being men's with a little bit more. The sheer size of what Nike is suggests that their women's business is a force to be reckoned with already.
The company has also said it sees more women embracing the sneaker culture each day. It's not just guys lining up outside stores to buy limited edition shoes. But when Nike has been outwardly advocating for women, internally, it's had its own challenges. In early 2018, the company vetted complaints about alleged inappropriate behavior by top male execs. There was also gender imbalance among leaders and pay disparity. Nike has since said it's increasing diversity among its leadership ranks and giving executives training on inclusion in the workplace. And its sales have still been climbing overall, showing this hasn't been a near-term strain on the business. More recently, Nike has come back into the spotlight with several high-profile female athletes speaking out, saying they were punished by Nike for having children. Olympic gold medalist Allison Felix, in an op-ed with the New York Times, said Nike wanted to pay her 70% less after her pregnancy. In May, Nike responded to the criticism by eliminating the requirement that said women needed to maintain a certain level of performance after childbirth in order to keep their pay. Nike's star status also has a lot to do with its presence in professional sports. In early 2019, the MLB confirmed it signed a 10-year uniform and shoe deal with Nike. Starting in 2020, Nike Swoosh will plaster the apparel of all MLB players. When the deal was announced, it solidified Nike's dominance in sports, as the retailer is now the uniform supplier for the three biggest sports leagues in the U.S., the MLB, the NFL, and the NBA. The NBA in 2015 signed an 8-year apparel deal with Nike, reportedly worth $1 billion. That meant Nike was taking over for Adidas, which didn't extend a prior 11-year deal with the league. With the NFL, football players will be wearing Nike's Swoosh logo through at least 2028. In 2018, Nike and the NFL extended an apparel partnership for 10 more years, meaning Nike is providing all game day gear and clothes for players on the sidelines. In soccer, though, Adidas still has a leg up. Adidas has had a relationship with Major League Soccer since the league was started in 1996. The two inked an exclusive deal, making Adidas the official outfitter of every MLS team in 2004. In 2017, MLS said the long-term partnership would be extended through at least 2024.
They've done an exceptional job as a company aligning themselves with elite athletes across all of sports. And their sports marketing team is so smart to say, hey, if we as a brand are associated with elite athletes across sports, that will make consumers know that we have a commitment to great technical product and great design.
Despite facing pressure from rivals, Nike remains a dominant force in sneakers and athletic apparel today. It's been the #1 player since the 80s, when it eclipsed Adidas. Nike ranks as the #1 brand in the US when looking at dollar sales of athletic footwear, Nike holds 1/3 of the market, followed by Adidas. Nike is also number 1 in the activewear category, followed by Under Armour. And then there's the athleisure side of Nike's business. Teens love Nike's clothes. And this is an important group of shoppers to win over as their spending power grows. A study found Nike to be not only teens' favorite athletic apparel brand in the US, but also the demographic's favorite apparel brand overall, topping companies like American Eagle, Urban Outfitters, and Forever 21. But Nike faces new competition from up-and-coming athleisure brands like Outdoor Voices, Rhone, and Bandier. These companies might never have the same recognition in major sports like Nike does, but they're finding success in catering to consumers frequenting yoga, Pilates, and spin classes. They all fit into the athleisure trend by offering clothes for people to work out and run errands in. Sales of activewear grew 10% to $55 billion in 2018, while the overall market for U.S. retail apparel increased 1.3% to $220 billion. Nike is still trying to grab a bigger share of that, as apparel in 2018 accounted for just about 31% of total sales for the Nike brand. And apparel sales were up 11% for the year, better than footwear sales growth of 6%. So, where does Nike go from here? How does a company that's seemingly ventured into every sport now keep growing? Back in the US, bankruptcies of several sportswear retailers, like Sports Authority, pushed Nike to pivot its focus to selling more directly to consumers. That means it's investing in its own stores, like a massive new House of Innovation flagship in New York on Fifth Avenue.
Well, one of the things I love about how we're thinking about digital and stores, we're finding that, if we're building out a retail experience that's a physical, we say, well, how would this happen digitally? What would that journey be like? And if we are building a digital experience, well, what would in real life, the IRL version of that be? And it really helps us to think through journeys in a more organic way.
And it's adding new technology, like Nike Fit, that scans customers' feet to tell them exactly what shoe sizes they should be wearing before they buy. At the end of 2018, Nike Direct sales represented about 30% of total Nike brand sales, up from 28% the year before. Second is Nike's push to sell more to women. Nike's women line still represents less than 25% of Nike's total sales. But the overall US women's market for shoes and clothing is much larger than men's, giving Nike room to grow. Working with athletes like Serena Williams, it's trying to encourage younger girls to get into sports and stick with it. It's sponsoring 4 of the 24 national teams playing in the 2019 FIFA Women's World Cup this summer, and it's making sure it has more merchandise to offer women than it has in the past. Ultimately, the key to Nike's success rests in its ability to keep growing on its home turf, to sell more merchandise, and just as importantly, to sell more shoes and clothes to women. So, will Nike be able to just do it?